Welcome to today's story, a gripping narrative of prejudice, power, and payback. In the next few moments, you'll enter a world where a routine traffic stop spirals into a life-altering series of events. What begins as an outrageous act of discrimination escalates into a dangerous game of secrets, betrayal, and conspiracies stretching from a small-town police precinct to the highest levels of government. Get ready for shifting alliances, heart-pounding confrontations, and an ending twist that will leave you stunned. Before we dive in, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. If you're excited about this story, let us know in the comments. Press 1 if you enjoyed the video. Press 0 if not. Your feedback inspires me to bring you more powerful and meaningful stories. Chapter 1. The Feeling. Jaylen Cross woke to the soft chime of his alarm clock. Normally, mornings like this grounded him, brought him a sense of calm and control. But not today. Something in the air felt off. Not in a superstitious way. Jaylen wasn't one to buy into omens, but he couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was on the horizon. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. There was a text from Darren, a colleague from Langley, reminding him about a classified briefing later. Another notification came through, an encrypted email from a friend at the Pentagon. A third message confirmed all preparations made, deliberately vague. As it should be. You see, Jaylen wasn't your average bureaucrat. As deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency, his name was a ghost, known only to those who needed to know. Out in public, people saw just another middle-aged black man driving an aging sedan through the suburbs of Northern Virginia. That's how he liked it. That morning, Jaylen threw on a plain sports coat over his button-down shirt. He had a few errands before heading into HQ at Langley. First stop, his favorite coffee shop. It was the kind of place where no one asked too many questions. Just another guy grabbing caffeine before work. Perfect cover. As he locked up his apartment, his eyes lingered on a framed photo hanging on the wall, him shaking hands with CIA Director Marcus Ellis in the main corridor of headquarters. His chest swelled with pride for just a moment. Then it was time to go. Chapter 2. A normal day, until it wasn't. Jaylen slid into his 10-year-old sedan. Nondescript. Reliable. He didn't need flash. He needed anonymity. He drove through Alexandria toward Beans Va Dreams, the small cafe he'd frequented for years. Parked half a block away. As usual. Tradecraft 101. Never be predictable. Inside, the familiar scent of roasted beans and fresh pastries greeted him. The barista, young, polite, smiled as he ordered his regular latte and almond croissant. He paid cash. Always did. Jaylen found a seat near the window. Sipped slowly. Checked the time. His briefing wasn't urgent. Just an update on an infiltration case in Eastern Europe. But his gut told him to stay sharp today. And then his phone vibrated. Unknown number. Message. Eyes on you. Call immediately. Jaylen's pulse quickened. The phrasing was familiar. Agency lingo, but the source wasn't. He glanced around the cafe. No one seemed out of place. He pocketed his phone, kept his face neutral, and stood to leave. Once outside, he scanned the street. Nothing. A couple walking a dog. A delivery van parked nearby. Nothing out of the ordinary. He exhaled, climbed into his car, and fired up the engine. Chapter 3. The Attack. Jaylen merged onto the highway, driving south toward Langley. Traffic was light. He kept checking his mirrors. No tails. But 5 minutes later, everything changed. A police cruiser suddenly swerved behind him, lights flashing. Jaylen signaled, pulled over smoothly. His hand stayed on the wheel. That's when it happened. The cruiser slammed into his rear bumper. What the hell? Jaylen muttered, gripping the wheel tight. Another cruiser appeared on his left, ramming his side. Tires screeched. Horns blared from nearby drivers swerving to avoid the chaos. Jaylen's instincts kicked in. He reversed, twisted the wheel, trying to break free. But the first cruiser pinned him against the guardrail. Then another violent hit from behind forced his sedan up onto the shoulder. The car groaned to a stop, smoke rising from under the hood. Jaylen's heart pounded. He ran a mental checklist. No broken bones. Ribs bruised. He reached for his phone. Then the driver's side window exploded. A baton smashed through the glass. Shards cut his face and arms. Out of the car. Now. The shout came from a white officer, maybe mid-40s, heavy-set, his badge readings GT. Kane. Next to him, another officer, lean, younger, badge-reading Officer Brent, held his sidearm steady, finger twitching on the trigger. Jaylen raised his hands slowly, breathing even. He'd seen enough of the world to know how dangerous this was. He was a black man, targeted by two white cops, forced from his vehicle with no explanation. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. Chapter 4. No respect. They yanked Jaylen from the car, slammed him onto the hot hood. Kane forced his arms behind his back, tightening cuffs until they bit into his skin. Thought you could run, huh? Kane sneered. Brent dug through Jaylen's car, tossing papers, rifling through the glove box. Nothing in here. Clean, Brent muttered. But we're towing it. Gotta be hiding something. Kane bent close, his breath hot in Jaylen's ear. You a gangbanger? Cartel? What's your story, boy? Jaylen clenched his jaw. You've got the wrong man. Kane laughed darkly. No such thing. Jaylen's training told him to wait. If he revealed who he was too soon, they could panic. Escalate. Maybe shoot him in self-defense. He stayed silent, focused on staying alive. Chapter 5. Backup arrives. Minutes dragged by. Traffic crawled past the scene. Some drivers filmed the encounter on their phones. Jaylen cataloged license plates, faces, witnesses. Then came the sirens. Different this time. Federal. A black SUV screeched to a stop. The door opened, and Special Agent Tyson Reed from Homeland Security stepped out. Reed wasn't a man you ignored. What's going on here? Reed demanded, flashing his badge. Got ourselves a runner, Kane answered, his tone defensive. Probably armed. We've got jurisdiction. Reed's face tightened. That man is Deputy Director Jaylen Cross of the CIA. For a moment, the world went still. Brent's mouth fell open. Kane's grip slackened. Then came the convoy. More black SUVs. CIA agents poured out, guns holstered but ready. Among them, Special Agent Marissa Cole, a seasoned field operative Jaylen had worked with before. Release him. Now, Cole barked, holding up her credentials. You can't be serious, Kane stammered. I'm deadly serious, Cole snapped. Deputy Director Cross. The words hit like thunder. Chapter 6. The Shift. The balance of power flipped in an instant. Kane and Brent were relieved of duty on the spot. Disarmed. Taken into custody by CIA agents. Bystanders murmured. Some cheered. Jaylen stood slowly, his muscles aching. He turned to Kane, meeting his gaze. You have a lot to answer for. Cole stepped in, guiding Jaylen toward one of the SUVs. Medics are waiting. We've got you. As the door closed behind him, Jaylen finally let out a breath. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Chapter 7. A Deeper Threat. Inside the SUV, Cole explained. An intercepted comm said compromised local cops might target high-value federal officers. We didn't expect them to go after you this brazenly. Jaylen's mind raced. They thought I was traveling alone and unarmed, he muttered. Cole nodded. Extremist cells, maybe. We're still piecing it together. At Langley, the debriefs and strategy sessions began immediately. Director Marcus Ellis wanted a full investigation. Jaylen agreed. Chapter 8. The Hunt for Magnus. Intel pointed to a leader known only as Magnus, organizing infiltration in law enforcement nationwide. Extremist ideology. White supremacist rhetoric. Jaylen took command of the task force. They tracked Magnus to a planned meeting in Raleigh, North Carolina. Undercover agents infiltrated the group. The plan was to confirm leadership and then strike. But it went sideways. Shots fired. Agents down. Jaylen personally led the breach team. Magnus was cornered, arrested, but not before setting off an explosion to destroy evidence. And when Jaylen finally saw Magnus' face, it was Chief Raymond Adler, a respected police leader from another state. Someone who had publicly denounced extremism. The conspiracy ran deep. Chapter 9. The Fallout. The weeks that followed were intense. Arrests. Interrogations. Trials. Kane and Brent were charged with conspiracy to commit terrorism. The media exploded with debates about CIA involvement in domestic affairs. But Jaylen stayed focused, quiet, determined. At the White House's request, he eventually made a public statement, spoke about justice, accountability, and reform. His words carried weight. Chapter 10. Moving forward. Despite the scars, physical and emotional, Jaylen stood firm. The networks of hate and corruption were exposed. And though the fight wasn't over, progress had begun. As deputy director of the CIA, he had sworn to protect the nation, and he would keep that promise. Thank you for joining me on this intense, emotional, and ultimately triumphant journey. If you found this story powerful and meaningful, please like the video, share it widely, and subscribe to the channel. Together, let's stand against hate and continue celebrating stories that inspire change. Stay safe, and see you in the next story.